the 2025 NFL draft, Nate. Before we get into the recap, is there anything you'd like to say about the draft? Surprises. We're going to get into the biggest news of them all, which is you know who in the 5th round. But before we get to that, before we get to the big drop, is there anything else you'd like to say? Kind of like in the first round, per se, and maybe just overall.
Was really, really, you know, wasn't surprised to see Jacksonville take the chance and drafting a generational talent in Travis Hunter. But they gave up a lot to get him. I'm just hoping and praying that they use him and utilize all of his talents. Everything went how we said. To be honest with you, I mean, seeing some surprises. Jackson Dart. Uh, oh, excuse me. The Giants trading back in the first. You know, it was a great draft. It really was. You know, a lot of people didn't go first round. Like I was shocked by a lot of players, but it's okay.
Now, when you were watching, I don't know if you were watching or not. I watched all 3 days of the draft. But if you're watching that first round, did the lineup at all, especially the first 10 picks, that sound familiar to you at all? It did sound familiar? Well, it's probably because we got just about the top 10 correct.
We got the top 10 correct.
Just about, just about.
Listen, we just about got the top 10 correct, but it was the manner in which the teams, the order, that's what we didn't have correct.
We didn't get the team order. And that's right. We'll go by. I'll give us half credit if we got the person in the correct spot, just not the team. I want to address this, though. If you stay till the end of the show, we will be grading the Saints draft. So stay to the end. I have a whole page worth of notes for you to give you on each pick. So rounds 1 through 7, all 9 picks for the Saints. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about the draft first. But let's go to pick number 1. We had Cam Ward. Cam Ward came out. It was pretty much known that, hey, it's going to be a pretty big package, to trade up to first to get Cam Ward. Now, the pressure is on in Tennessee, and I want to discuss this first overall pick for a reason. When Cam Ward was kind of getting introduced as a Tennessee Titan, Warren Moon, who is retired, his jersey is retired for Tennessee. We all know he was number 1. Cam Ward wore number 1 in college. He walked out of the back of the room, came with a number 1 jersey, Houston Oilers jersey, and said, look, I'm going to give you the privilege of wearing number 1 for your career in Tennessee. Nate, as an ex-NFL veteran, just kind of describe the honor it is. I mean, even as a fan, I understand it, but I wasn't a player.
It's a prestigious honor. I mean, you're asking an all-time great in that franchise if you can have the honor of wearing their number, and that's sacred right there. You know, I don't know if you've seen, but Abdul Carter was just denied by Lawrence Taylor wearing his number. That's
I
a
was going to
big
get there.
deal. That's a big deal, you know. But I'm kind of glad Abdul Carter was denied that right. He's creating his own legacy. You know, you pick another number and make sure that the Giants retire that number in honor of you. But you know, with Cam Ward, you know, could say the same thing about him. But you know, he wore one. He wants one. You know, it's a beautiful thing. And now that's going to come with some big shoes to fill. And you got to also understand that it's going to be a growing process with Cam Ward as his acclimation from the collegiate scheme to the NFL scheme. It may take some time. It may have some bumps in the road. So you got to acknowledge that.
So we got that first pick, and it became pretty clear to me, and I prefaced this before I got into the picks, that 1, 2, and 3 were going to be Ward, Hunter, and Carter. So that is what we did. At number 2, Travis Hunter. He didn't go to the Browns. He went to the Jaguars. I'll give us half credit for that one just because we didn't get the team right, but we did get that number 2 spot right. Number 3 was Abdul Carter. I tried to be risky, tried to do a trade. It didn't work out. We got the pick right. We just didn't get the team. Number 4 was Will Campbell to the Patriots. We got that dead on. 5 was Mason Graham to the Browns. Now, this was that I tried to predict 49ers trading up to 5. It didn't happen. We got Mason Graham at 5, so I'm going to give us half credit for that. Ashton Jeanty to the Raiders at 6. We got that one. Armand Membao, 7th to the Jets. We got that, and this is where it takes a turn for our mock draft because we got the first 7 picks dead on, just didn't get the teams. And then we go to pick 8, and I saw this in a couple mocks, wasn't ready to put kind of the pen on the paper and say, hey, this is what's going to happen. At number 8, the Panthers got Tedorora McMillan, and then the Saints drafted Kelvin Banks Jr. at 9, Colston Loveland to the Bears at 10, and then so on and so forth. I'd love to give you all the picks, but I know you're probably going to get tired of hearing my voice and saying names, but I'll give you another pick that we did get right. It didn't happen in the first round, though. I do want to preface that. One of the biggest things that you talked about, Nate, in that first round mock draft was Mike Green to the Baltimore Ravens. You thought it fit well. It was a great pick. It was dead on. It just didn't happen in the first round. Now, he fell out of a lot of people's boards because of certain off-the-field issues he had before going to Marshall. So the Ravens drafted him in the second round. I'm going to give us credit for that because that is still the Ravens board. So they got him. I'm going to give us credit for that. I say we get 8 right, and that's going to be the end of our 2025 mock draft.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Before we get into what I want to focus on for this segment, anything else you want to say about the 2025 mock draft? Next segment, we're going to talk about a little bit of that biggest news on that day.
That's one of the hardest things when you're doing a mock draft because you can't take into consideration the possibility of trades. Prime example, Jacksonville trading up from, was that the number 5 spot?
Yeah, they traded from 5 to 2, gave the Browns their second round pick and the first from next year.
Okay. Couldn't sit here and can't put a thumbtack on what team's going to trade with who. It's for sure. You never know. So when you're analyzing and putting the emphasis of a possible trade in any mock draft, it's going to be hard. But we did good.
Now, I want to go back to that 3rd overall pick. I have a lot of questions that popped up in my mind because we had a segment based on what the Giants were going to do at number 3 if that was Abdul Carter. And a lot of signs were pointing that, hey, they're going to draft him at number 3, but let's discuss what had to happen. Now, on their mock draft, as of right now, their depth chart, they have Abdul Carter as their strong side linebacker.
Yeah, their left side, yeah.
So, which means that Kayvon Thibodeau is taking a step back behind Carter. In my eyes, I was going to have all 3 of them play. Now, this depth chart is not official, but I want to draw out, I'm going to share my screen in just a second, and draw out kind of their defensive scheme with Carter in terms of you have a lot of money in your edges right now, and I'm going to paint the picture out for you right before I actually do so. So, cap hits for 2025 season for the New York Giants edges. You have Brian Burns. He's almost at $30 million. He's just shy of $30 million next year in his 5-year contract he signed. Kayvon Thibodeau, just shy of $10 million. They ended up, after they drafted Abdul Carter, they said, hey, we're going to pick up his 5th-year option, kind of delay contract negotiations another year. Next year, it will be $15 million guaranteed money for his 5th-year option. That's a lot of money, but this year it's $10 million on the last deal of his rookie deal. Now, Carter, he signed a 4-year, $45 million deal. He was one of the first round picks, to do that. $29 million of it is guaranteed. You make 11 and a half roughly per year with this new contract. So let's assume that a lot of it's probably backloaded like it was with Kayvon Thibodeau. Like 10 million is the most money he got out of any year of his rookie deal. Let's say that he probably makes around 10 million his first year. So let's just estimate that. So we're saying you are putting in and investing $50 million just in edge rushers in 2025 if you're the New York Giants. Is this a good thing, Nate? Is this a bad thing? Is their defense is it going to feel out of place? Is the edge rushing oversaturated? Tell me your thoughts on everything I just explained to you, because $50 million, you have a $267 million cap space, I think, next year. I should have got that number right. That is almost a fifth of your cap space, a little less.
Okay. It could be a great thing for this team. Now, the thing that I said to you is, and what I've said to others is, again, offense sells tickets, defense wins championships. And if this team is going to win anything, that defense has to be sure. But they got to have the right focus. That means Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns?
Yes.
Brian Burns and Abdul Carter, they're going to have to gel well. They're going to have to really come in there with the same mindset. Everybody on that team, but we're just talking about the defensive side. That defensive line right there, that pass rush can dominate a game, can take over a game with those three. They just have to acclimate themselves and get the right personnel on the field. Get the veteran leadership that's necessary and needed. But this Giants team has all the intangibles to making a run and being a good defense.
I agree, but the thing that struck me was you're going to accept the fifth-year option. You're going to pay him $15 million next year in that fifth-year option. Let's think about it. Brian Burns will probably get more money. Abdul Carter will probably get more money. Maybe you trade him next year.
No, that's why you need Kayvon Thibodeau to have a big year. So he's trade bait. He again, if the Giants can get him to have, say, a career year, we're not going to even say first team All Pro year. Let's see if he can have him a good year. There will be a team that will be interested and that will entertain. I know the Giants will entertain phone calls and about a team possibly giving up a first and maybe a second rounder or first and third rounder for that guy if he has a breakout year. And now it's business now. At this point, it's business. Where, okay, what have you done for me lately? If I can get some draft capital from you, and they can have possibly two first round draft picks next year. Look at that.
I'm just curious to see how the defense will look like in 2025. I get what you're saying. It's business. They're going to accept the fifth year because if they're only tied to him for another year and he balls out, then they're going to have to pay a lot more than $15 million to try to keep him, or they're just going to let him go because they drafted Abdul Carter. But look, this is what I want to do, Nate. I'm going to present my screen real quick. I have done the liberty of taking a whiteboard and drawing out the scheme of the New York Giants. So I have had the liberty of drawing out this 3-4 scheme. Does it look correct based on a 5-year NFL veteran?
Yes, it is. You got your DN, nose tackle, DN, outside linebacker, 2 inside linebackers, outside linebacker, strong safety, free safety, cornerback. Yes.
So I have their depth chart pulled up right here in this tab, and based on what I thought the Giants were going to do. Now, right now, it says that Abdul Carter and Kayvon Thibodeau are playing the strong side, which I'm assuming that's this right here. I've always thought it was the the right side. You said earlier it was the left.
The left side is always the strong side.
Okay. So this is their strong side. So in my mind, look, you have Dexter Lawrence right here at the nose tackle. If you want me to, I can. Oh, where'd my thing go? I can put a little text mark here. So let's say we have Dexter Lawrence at the nose tackle, just to give a nice little visual of everyone watching. So you have your strong side here. And we'll say that Brian Burns is on the weak side based on how their thing goes in. Now you have, Bobby Okereke on one of your inside linebackers. And then you have Micah McFadden in the other one. So let's do that real quick. I'm solely going to focus on the kind of the line. I don't know who's at the end right here, if it's going to be a veteran, if you're going to have, because Dexter Lawrence is already kind of veteran material. So then we get into the conversation of who's going to fill this strong side linebacker spot. Is it going to be Kayvon Thibodeau? Is it going to be Abdul Carter? I had a conversation with my dad. I'm glad he put a comment up earlier of this spot right here should be, Nate, if you agree with me, say something or you can leave it be. But this was my original thought.
To put Kayvon there?
You put Kayvon there on the strong side, which leaves...
No, not an inside. Oh, you're going to put him on...
Abdul Carter at the end.
Or you can... Wait, what's Kayvon Thibodeau's measurement?
I don't know. Let me look at that on my phone so I don't get off this screen. I don't know who's bigger, Kayvon Thibodeau or Abdul Carter, but this, I'm just showing you, this was my original thought. Now, ESPN has Kayvon Thibodeau at 252, or excuse me, 258. And we'll see what Abdul Carter is, because this was my mindset. Although you probably did not have Kayvon, you probably had him coming down here on the line, right? This is my mindset of it. So if we have this next year, I don't know who plays here, Elijah Chapman. I think they have Jason Pierre-Paul too. Whoever plays at this defensive end spot, Nate, whether it's one of the veterans you have on staff, it's either you drop Abdul Carter down or you play him on strong side. This was my reasoning. Think about it. A 3-4 scheme, you don't always have 3 on the line. What happens if we say, okay, we're going to scoot the 2 inside linebackers, keep them well, but we're going to do this with Kayvon Thibodeau.
Wait.
And we're going to scoot him on the line. This cornerback needs to be out.
Okay. Hey, Connor. Wait. Switch now. Abdul Carter needs to go to the other side.
To the defensive end, this side.
Yeah, that side. He needs to be on that side. Yeah.
So that is what it will look like if Kayvon Thibodeau is on the line with Abdul Carter.
Yeah.
And we keep Brian Burns back in the second level.
Yeah.
But if you're New York, wouldn't you try to have your best on the line, but at the same time, you're trying to have Kayvon Thibodeau have a year, like a career year, so you can get the most value out of him if you choose to trade him in his 5th year of his rookie deal. What does that look like, Nate?
That looks good. The only thing is, because you have so much, talent in the pass rush department. I personally would have Kayvon Thibodeau. I would have him line up on the D line.
So you think he should be one of these defensive ends?
Yeah, I think he should be one
to have all 3 of them on the line.
Yeah, because if you one of the things that they can do, like those TE games or stunts, they can execute it. They really get in sync with one another. They can execute a TE stunt so good, and it's going to be so much pressure.
Let me go back. Let's think about all the different combinations, though, you could do if you're New York. This is why New York drafted Abdul Carter at 3. Think of all the different combinations you could do here, Nate. You could put Brian Burns on this side, put Kayvon Thibodeau over here, have them all 3 on the line, have Kayvon in the second level, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter. Of course, that would be another outside linebacker spot. It wouldn't be the defensive end. But You have so many different combinations now to your pass rush game. That is why the Giants decided to draft Abdul Carter. Let me put us back up in here. Do you see? I just wanted to visualize that for everybody. Hopefully, y'all got a good visual of it because I'm a visual learner, so I had to really sit and think after having a conversation with my dad of what the Giants defense will look like in 2025. Any thoughts? What about the different combinations? I mean, what stress does that put on a team that is game planning for the Giants in a week?
Because
you have an offensive side of the ball. You have to
think
think of all the different combinations you're going to play against with those pass rushers.
Your pass protection, you got to really be your offensive line, defensive line. You need to make sure your slide protection is on point.
So, was this a good move by New York?
Yes.
To have Abdul Carter at 3?
Yes.
Okay.
You got to shoot that defense up. I mean, you're in the NFC East. Washington and Philly just Philly just won the Super Bowl. Washington went to the playoffs. Dallas is going to be a team that can be a high-powered offense. You got to be able to score, or excuse me, you got to be able to stop some of these teams and some of these offenses and whatnot. And Philly, let's not forget, Philly is a three-headed monster with Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley. You know, those guys are running the ball, passing the ball. With whether it's Devontae Smith or AJ Brown, or they have a great tight end. Come on, you're gonna have to be able to stop some of these teams.
Now we know who is the starting quarterback for the Commanders now, and that's a difficult running back to stop, especially the dude when he led the team in rushing yards last season. And I'm glad I have my dad in the chat because he does make a good point. Think back to the greatest offense of all time. Who would that team be, Nate?
The greatest offense? Greatest show on turf.
Maybe, yeah. Okay, I'll say that's probably the greatest offense. Yeah, I'll say that. I didn't even think about the greatest show on turf. But
who was you going to say?
I was going to say that 2008 Patriots team. The first undefeated team.
Randy Moss went for 23.
Exactly. So he raises a good point. This is exactly what New York did when they beat Brady. I talk about how great that defense was, holding Brady to 2 possessions and then 3 possessions in the next Super Bowl when they beat him twice. Precedence is set, Nate. They're trying to replicate GMs, especially someone like Mickey Loomis, who we're going to talk about later. They're trying to replicate the success they had in the past and how they did it. What better season to replicate than the one where you beat one of the greatest offenses of all time?
Ooh. Now you got me thinking about offense right now. 2008 Patriots was something special.